Hello, hello, and welcome to this massively delayed session of Talk Tuesday. I am very sorry, but my messed up sleeping schedule meant that I also had a messed up eating schedule. So that needed resolving. But now everything is fine. Everything I have eaten, I have overcome thirst. And I am now ready to go into the next session, probably the last session on music theory. I'll have to see. So, what are we going to talk about today? Today we're talking about chords. I'll just write that down for now. And as always, we are going to wait just a little bit, but because the stream is so delayed, not too long, not a whole 15 minutes. Just a little bit for people to come in, have a nice seat, for me to pick up some nice music. Have something quietly playing in the background. All right. So yeah, chords. This is today's session. We've gone through notes, we've gone through scales, we've gone through keys, we've gone through different modes and types of scales, what they mean. And with all of that now, we can go into chord. I do want to say, last session, 2 weeks ago, I made a terminological error. Basically, every time I said harmonic minor, I actually meant natural minor. I messed those terms up. So yeah, that's on me. My bad. So if you are looking up minor scales or just scales in general, natural minor is what I was talking about. The harmonic minor is a different scale. I can go into that a little bit more if wanted, but I just wanted to clear that up. Not going to be overpowering. Hope that's fine. It's just supposed to be a little bit in the background. Right. So, I think I can start. Yeah, I think waited a little bit. So, yeah. Chords. Chords. What are chords? Chords is something you hear about a lot in music, and chords is also you see in music a lot. So chords very generally are a combination of notes that are played together. I will put an addendum on that. Right, so there are two important words here. The first one is combination, and the second one is, put that in a different color. Second one is together. Right, so what do I mean by combination? Really, if you take a very broad sense of what a chord is, whenever you have more than one note and you play it with some, you play these more than one notes, you have a chord. But that definition is so broad that it doesn't really help us. So combination, I'm going to put various criteria. So I'm going to say 3 or more notes, right? It can go up to 4 or 5 or even 6. You could theoretically go up even more, but at that point, you can't really distinguish the sound anymore. Remember, there are only 12 different notes in Western music theory, in classical music theory. And 6 is already half of that, right? So if you go any more than that, you're just bunching up too much, and then the sound just becomes a mess, and doesn't become distinguished enough to serve any purpose. So 3 or more notes, typically up to 6, right? And 6, even that, you don't really see very often. 4 or 5, you see now and then. But 6, So I will put here, typically up to 6, right? And combination means a group in a specific with a specific interval, so with specific spacing in between the notes. I'm trying not to use too much terminology here, music theory terminology. So forgive me if some of the words seem a bit imprecise. The correct word is within a scale on certain intervals. But really it's with a specific distribution. So with, or spacing, right? Specific spacing. And you'll see what I mean in a moment when I go into some examples. So intervals, right? And if you want I'll stick with that. So this is what I mean by combination, right? 3 or more notes, typically up to 6, with specific spacing. And played together means either at the same time or as it's, you call it an arpeggio, and we did have examples of that in the last session with the arpeggio player, right? So at the same time, or how do I write this? Bunched together, I guess you could say. Bunched together, right? And It doesn't have to be an arpeggio. So an arpeggio is when you take a chord and you just play every note in it one after the other. It doesn't have to be that. That is one way to play chords. And really, a single chord is when you play all of them at the same time. But even then, you can have variations, right? Where you play them very quickly one after another, and you hold them all. So the end result is a chord that is built up very quickly. There are many variations, of course, because music is large. You can do a lot of things with music. Or you can bunch them together and play a piece of a melody or harmony with specific notes that all belong to the same chord. And again, you'll see what I mean when I go into examples. But this is the basic definition of a chord. So a combination of notes that are played together. Now, when I say notes, I do mean only the 12 notes that make up classical music theory. So, the notes that we've been dealing with all this time: C, and then we have C sharp or D flat, D, D sharp or E flat, E, F, F sharp, G flat, G, G sharp or A flat, A sharp or B flat, B. That's it. These are 12 notes, right, that make up all of classical Western music, right? These are not the only notes possible in music, right? There's microtones, so tones in between each of these. There are other splits of how we, like, because sound is continuous, pitch is continuous, right? But how we split it up depends on what musical tradition you look at. But in classical Western music theory, which is what we're dealing with here, as a starting point, these are the 12 notes that exist, right? And then the pattern just repeats, right? It just repeats in one direction and repeats in the other direction. So you really get only these 12 notes and you build chords out of these. So that means if you have, say, a C inside your chord, it doesn't really matter if it's this C or if it's the C up here or even further up or further down. It's always the same note, right? So a chord, the basic, the fundamental identity of a chord does not care about how exactly you arrange the notes that make up this chord, right? You can define how you want to arrange the notes. And they do sound different. And sometimes for music, you do want that particular sound of a different arrangement of those notes. But it doesn't change the fundamental identity of the chord. Right. So if I have a chord that is C, E, G, which by the way is a C major chord, right? It does not matter if I play it C, E, G, or if I play it E, G, C, or if I play it C, E, G, C, or C, E, C, G, or anything like that, right? It doesn't really matter because it is built out of these three notes and that makes up the fundamental identity. All of these are C major chords. They're just arranged differently, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. I can take the notes of a chord and play them however I want, and it will still be that chord. I could even leave out a note. That happens with chords that have a lot of notes in them, like 5 or 6. You sometimes leave out a note just to make the sound less cluttered, but it is still that particular chord, right? It doesn't change the fundamental identity. All right, so why is learning about chords useful? So let me just write this down quickly. Specific arrangement of notes doesn't change the fundamental identity of the chord. Right. So that's important, right? All right, so why is it useful to learn about chords, or to know about chords at the very least? Because a chord does a very big deal of adding to the feel of a song, right? So we have talked about scales, various different scales and modes of music. So what can change the feel of a song? Well, the scale can change the feel. Scale can influence overall feel of a song. And I'm just using song for piece of music, right, as a shorthand right now. So the scale can influence the overall feel of a song. If you have a major scale, it feels a certain way compared to the minor scale. Let me see if I can... Where am I? All right, hold on. I need to change this slightly, because I do have... Oops. There. Can I adjust this a bit better? Okay, so I did find a really cool website where I can play a piano using the keyboard. So a major scale, can you hear that? Yeah. Right? Sounds different than a minor scale. Let me see if I can get this right. Right? So just by picking a certain scale, or even something else, right? We talked about the modes, so something like a Mixolydian scale. Oops. Right? That can change the feel of the overall piece of music, or the overall feel. So a major scale makes a song sound bright or happier. A minor scale typically makes it sound more melancholy or darker, right? Different scales, or a blues scale, or a pentatonic scale, or whatever scale you want to choose, right? Makes a song sound a specific way. So the scale influences how the song feels. Chords also influence how a song feels, but they're much more moment to moment, right? So they're smaller scale. Smaller scale. So chords can influence moment to moment feel of a song, right? So you get some chords, like a major chord, the C major chord that we had, C, E, G. You could have a C minor chord, right? And that, you can tell how it feels different. And usually you pick chords that fit to the scale, but what specific chord you pick changes the moment to moment of a song. All right? So knowing about scales can help you, or not scales, sorry, knowing about chords and how they relate to scales and how they relate to the feeling of a song can help you gain a deeper understanding and deeper appreciation of, oh, this song sounds very spicy, or oh, this song sounds very mysterious, or oh, this song sounds, I don't know, very lofty, or whatever it is, right? Very peaceful, very anything. And that is done by the chords. Right. So, and if, of course, if you're making music, knowing chords helps you with seeing, oh, what are some good tools I can use? I want to go for this particular feeling. What kind of chords can evoke this feeling, and use that at the very least as a starting point, right? So that's why knowing about chords is pretty useful. Now, one thing to start off with, chords can have very scary looking notation that looks a lot like math and weird formulas and such. There is a system behind it. Unless you really want to get into writing music or playing music, jazz or guitar or something where you have a lot of those notations, you don't need to know them, right? You don't need to learn them. But again, there is a system behind it, and it gives every chord a name, and it can be useful if you want to go more deeply into music. Now, there are two parts to chords. The first part is how a chord relates to a scale, right? So first part is how chords relate to scales. And the second is how chords can be built and enhanced. Right. So how do chords relate to scales? A scale, if you recall, is a subset of all the notes that exist, built in a specific pattern of steps, whole steps or half steps, or even whole and half steps, right? 1.5, or even 2 steps, right? Depends on the scale. So if we have, say, the major scale, right? And let's go with C, because C is simple. C major scale. Right? And we have the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and so on and so forth, right? And it repeats. Now, what does this mean for the chords? For the chords, that means you typically build chords that have notes that exist in the C major scale. And this is where we circle back to modes, because again, modes are individual scales that we built out of a certain root note. So any chord that uses these notes is part of the C major scale. Not only right? But it is one direction that chords can go. So you can have, say, C, E, G, the C major chord. You could also have D, F, A, which incidentally is a D minor chord. You could have E, G, B, which is an E minor chord. F, A, C, which is, let me write these all down. So you could have C, E, D, C, E, G, sorry, which is C major. Then you have D, F, A, which is a D minor. Then you have E, G, B, which is an E minor. Then you have F, A, C, which is an F major. You have G, B, D, which is a G major chord, right? You have the A, what is it? A, C, E, which is an A minor chord. And then you have, almost running out of space. Let me scoot down a little bit. Okay. Oh, it's running out of space already on the screen. Nice. Right. So, and then you have B, what is it? B, D, F. Yes, B, D, F, which in this case is a B diminished. B diminished chord, which is also a type of chord. So all of these chords exist on the C major scale, which means you can play any of these in a song that is C major. Now I'm running out of letters. Let me see. Right, all of these can work in a C major song. Oops. Let me get the keyboard right. I could just do something like this. I don't know. I'm just playing. It's not easy because it splits, right? It goes from Q to P and then it goes all the way down to Z on the keyboard. So it's not as easy. But I hope you get the idea, right? All of these chords can be put into a song that is C major because all of these chords are built using notes that are found in C major. So they work in C major. That is one way notes or chords relate to scale, right? So this is very useful information. If you have a song in a certain key, really this is the key of C major, then you know, okay, it has these notes and you can build these specific chords out of it. If you're more into classical notation, you might see this as 1, a small 2, a small 3, large 4, large 5, a small 6, and then a 7 with either a minus or a 0, right? Both versions exist. The capital O simply means major, and then the lowercase letters simply mean minor. But you can see this notation as well, right? Now, if we go to something like the C minor scale, right? Natural minor. Now that I've learned my lesson, natural minor. So we have C, we still have D, and we have E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. We can still do the same thing. We can go C, E flat, G. We still build chords with a step in between each. By the way, I just noticed I didn't explain that. So we go a step in between each because that is the spacing for the chords, for the notes to have a good chord. Let me go back to the keyboard. So if I go here and I do want some space in between this and the next note, and in between this and the next note. If I just bunch things together, right, it becomes very messy. It doesn't have a clear sound anymore. So we tend to space things out in these triads, is what you call them, right? Either a major one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So so 1 half step, 2 half step, 3 half step, 4 half step, right? And then 1 half step, 2 half step, 3 half step, right? This is 3. So either in 4 half steps or 3 half steps, right? You space them out. This is the reverse. 3 half steps, 4 half steps. So you kind of have this basic arrangement of spacing to have a sound that is not all bunched up and messy, but that you can identify as a nice chord, right? But yeah, let's continue for now. So we have A flat, then we have E flat, G, B flat, then we have F, A flat, C, then we have G, B flat, D, then we have A flat, C, E flat, and then B flat, D, F, right? And this changes the chords. So we have the minor scale. Right, so we have this. This is a C minor chord, right? This is a D diminished chord. And then we have this is an E major chord, E flat major chord, sorry. And we have the F. It's an F minor. This is a G minor chord. And we have, okay, let me see where my letters are. This, and then this is an A flat major. Then we have, which letter do I press for this one? This one. This is a B flat major. And then we're back to the C minor. Right? So, this is now a C minor, D diminished, E flat major, and this is an F minor, this is a G minor, an A flat major, and a B flat major. I realize my writing is going very slanted, but I hope that's okay. And we can do the same Roman numeral numbering here. We can have lowercase 1 to minus 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, like so. Right? Same idea. So this is how you can build various chords that all exist within the same scale. So when you have a piece of music, you want multiple different chords in it, because always having the same chord over and over again, right? I don't know, if I play a song in F major and then have some sort of melody going, or whatever, right? It ends up sounding like this is how children's songs often sound, right? Very, very simple, very, very one-dimensional. Instead, I can shift things around. Oh, sorry. And play with different chords that all fit the same scale, in this case an F major scale. And it brings more variation into a song, right? And that's also sometimes when a song sounds off, when a certain part of a song sounds a bit off, or seems to break something, that the cause of that can be that whoever wrote the music decided to put a chord in that is not part of the scale. For whatever reason, right? Maybe to make it sound a bit off, maybe to make it a bit spicy, maybe to achieve a certain effect. But it could be that they decided, right? Again, if we go to the C major, and then I suddenly decide to put something like this in here, an E major instead of an E minor, that breaks the song a bit, right? It feels off. And you could do that for a specific effect, right? That is what music is for, right? You want to achieve a certain effect, and you can break the quote-unquote rules, you can break patterns to achieve that. So now you know, all right, if I have a song in a certain scale, then in a certain key, rather, then there are a bunch of chords, 7, that fit into this, into the scale. And if I use all of these, or if the song uses all of these, it sounds grounded. It sounds like it's always coming back home to the root, right? Which is the root note of the key. And if it doesn't do that, well then something may have been added into there. Now that's one way to do it. The other way to make songs a bit spicier is to change the chords themselves. Not to change the fundamental of the chord, but to enhance the chord. And that is the next step, right? So we talked about how chords relate to scales. This is it, right? And now how can chords be enhanced? So enhancing and spicing up chords, because that's really what you're doing, right? So, oops, not H. Enhancing or spicing up chords. And what happens here now is that sometimes you do add notes that are not part of the scale or part of the key. I'm using these two words interchangeably right now, but if you do go into music theory, they're not interchangeable, right? But for our purposes right now, we can treat them as equivalent, so don't worry too much about it. So enhancing or spicing up chords. So what you do there is you add notes to a basic 3-note chord, and these additional notes don't have to be part of the scale. So let's go with our C major again. The E, F, G, A, B, C. And let's just pick again the normal C major chord. Right? Perfectly serviceable if a little bit bland if you want to add something to the music. So what can we do? We can add more notes to it. You may have heard of a 7 chord before, maybe not, but this is the most straightforward way and the first step of how to enhance a chord. You add another note on top, which is the 7. Why is it the 7? Well, if we look at these notes, C is the first note here. Then we have 2, B, and then E is the third note, F, and then G is the 5th note. And then you go with the same pattern, you skip over one, and then you add the next one, which is the 7. Okay? Now there are different ones that you can add. You could just go add the straight B because it's in the scale, and that works. That is a chord. And I think you can hear the difference. Let me actually now turn off the music, right, so that we can focus on the piano here. That's the normal C major, and now this is called a C major 7 chord. Right? It sounds slightly more airy, maybe, right? Slightly larger. At least that's my impression, right? How you feel about it might be slightly different, but this is, there's different ways to write it, right? You could write it like this, or sometimes you can see this notation, right? They both mean the same thing, C major 7. So this is just a C major chord, a C chord, plus the major 7th. That's why it's the major, right? It's the major 7th because you go up a major third, right? So GB is a major step, and you add that, and then you have a major 7. You could add other notes. You could add a note that is not on the scale. Go, oops, C, E, G. You start with this one, and then you could add a B flat. Now, if you notice, a B flat is not part of the C major scale, but you can still enhance your chord with something like a B flat. And that sounds particularly spicy because the B flat is not on the C major scale. So listen to this. This is the normal C major chord. All right, and now the C7. This is called a C7 chord. How's that sound? Kind of spicy, I think. Kind of jazzy. It's a sound that you hear very often in jazz. Jazz loves using 7 chords, right? So this is a C7 chord, and so on and so forth, right? You can do a lot of different things. You can enhance these chords this way. You can do the same with minor chords, right? You could also have a minor scale, C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, and then you could have the standard C, E flat, G, and then add the 7th that is on here, which is the B flat. And then this is a C minor 7 chord. So to go back to our piano, This is a C minor and then a C minor 7. Beautiful sound. Right? It does change the sound. And that's the whole point, right? It enhances the entire thing. You could, of course, also, in this case, add a note that's not on, not on the scale. You could go back to a B natural as a 7. The B natural is not on the C minor scale, but you could add it, right? Just like how we went down a half step over here, we can go up a half step over here. This is called, it's a very funny name, a C minor major 7. C minor chord with a major 7 on it, right? That's where the name comes from. So you get the C minor, and then let me hit the right key. Ooh. That sounds mysterious and dangerous, a bit ominous, right? With just a single note added, we changed the entire feel of the chord. And that's how you can see that adding notes, enhancing the chord, also enhances the sound and the feel. Right? You could go even further. Just like how this scale continues on theoretically onto infinity, you could keep adding more notes. You just skip one at the next, skip one at the next, skip one at the next. You could have, for instance, C, E, G, and then skip one. You could have the B in here, don't have to, but then skip one at the next, which would be a D. And the D up here is number, check, 1, 5, 3, 7, 9. Oh, 1, 3, 5, 7. I'm sorry. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And that's how you write. This is a C9 or C at 9 chord. Right? You don't have to play the 7. Again, it can clutter the sound a bit. But let's take a listen. Right? This is the normal C major. This is a C at 9. How's that sound? I like it. Of course, sometimes your hand might not be big enough, or oftentimes your hand might not be big enough to span 9 keys like this, right? Not a lot of people can play this. So what you can do is you can shift this D down to this D. Like I said, the arrangement of individual notes does not matter. It does not change the fundamental identity of the chord. So, you can do something like this. You could even take out the third and put it somewhere else, right? Say, play, let me get the letters right. What is this? C is this, and then the G is the X. So, you could even play something like this. This is also a C at 9. It has all of the notes. It has a C, it has another C, it has an E in it, it has a G in it, and it has the D in it. right? Like I said, the actual arrangement doesn't matter. This is also a C add 9 chord. Right? So that's how you can do it. You can go even further. You can add the next one. C, E, G, B, D, right? So you have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. What comes after that? Skip this one, add this, the F. And this is, you might see a pattern now, 11. And this is a chord, when you play this, you most likely leave out a note or two or rearrange it, because spanning 11 keys with one hand, the people who can do this, you can probably count them on one hand, right? So, like this, and then that's also a different sound, right? But again, you can arrange it however you like. And so on and so on. At 13, at 15, at some point, you circle back around, right? 13 is the A, G, A, and then 15 would be the C again. So you don't count that. So 13 is really the highest you go, and sometimes you do have chords that say 13 at 13. That would just be this one, and then you're back to 7, and then the root note, and so on. So it circles around, but you do get this pattern, and you can enhance chords like this, and you can change the individual notes. You can change the individual notes to whatever you want. You could have a flat 9, right? So instead of a D, you add a D flat into there, right? D flat. So, ooh, that sound, I like it, right? Very ominous. But that's the chord. And that's exactly what you can do with adding things to chords, right? And that's what you do when you spice up music. You can always play the basic chord. There's nothing wrong with that. You also have songs that just have a single chord. There's also nothing wrong with that. But the sound and the feeling the song creates is changed by changing chords or by enhancing them, right? So this was just a very quick insight into how chords change the feeling of a song, either by switching to different chords within the same scale, or to by enhancing individual chords to adjust the sound of that particular bit, right? There is also let me see. 4-chord song. There is actually, I don't want cookies. Check cookies, please. All right. So there is actually a lot of pop songs, and this is also how you can say that a lot of pop songs sound very, very similar, is because they use the same chord structure. There is something called a 4-chord song, and basically a lot of pop songs use the exact same 4 chords. So these 4 chords, so the 4-chord song uses the chords 1, let me check, 5, 6, and 4. Is that 4? Yeah, that's a 4. That. So you write it down like this because this means this is independent of the key, right? You have whatever the root note is, you have the major 1st chord, the major 5th chord, the minor 6th chord, and the major 4th chord, which is a normal major key, right? If we look back at this over here, right? Major key, any major scale, you have the major 1st, you have the major 4th, you have the major 5th, and a minor 6th. And that's the 4-chord song. So let me just get these 4 chords. Where's my piano? My piano is here. So the 4 chords are, as an example, oops, a D, and then an A major. Let me get this right. How do they play this? Okay, and then no, that doesn't sound right. Let me find out which keys I have to press on my keyboard. Right, and then it's easier on an actual piano. This is me assigning random letter keys essentially to keys on a piano. So sorry about that. And then right. This is taking too long. Hold on. There. That's the first one in a D major. That's the next one, A major. Oh. The B minor, and then the G major. Right? So a lot of pop songs have this chord structure. I know I just butchered it because it's difficult to play on my computer keyboard. But a lot of songs have this structure, and I'm not gonna play it on stream because of DMCA reasons. But there is actually a song, and it's available on YouTube, by Axis of Awesome, which is an Australian comedic music band. Axis of Awesome. And they have a song called 4-chord song. Right? And if you listen to that, Jinxie, hello, how are you doing? Nice to see you here. How are you? How are you? I am explaining music theory. So if you're into that, you're welcome to stay. But I am an hour in, so fair warning, I talked about quite a bit already. Nice, nice. I'm talking about chords today, and how chords can be used to make a song more interesting, right? By having chords within a certain scale, and by having chords that are enhanced in some way. And I was talking about how a lot of pop songs, over a lot of years, really, the last couple of years, they all sound very similar because they use the exact same chord structure, this chord structure right here. So a major first chord, a major fifth chord, a minor sixth chord, and a major fourth chord, and then back to the first and just repeat, 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 right? And like I said, there's this Australian comedy band called Axis of Awesome that have a song called Four Chord Song. Again, I'm not gonna play it on stream because copyright. But it is, last time I checked, it is freely available, or some version of it, right? It's freely available on YouTube, possibly even on their official channel. And what they essentially do is they just play these four chords over and over and over and over and riff off like 20 or 30 different popular songs from all sorts of bands and singers. And it all fits nicely into this chord structure. And that's how and then once you listen to that and realize, whoa, all of these songs are built the same way, that is, or that can help you see why a lot of pop songs sound so similar. Because they use the same chord structure. And a lot of them don't even use any enhancing of chords, right? They just play the basic chords as they are. So that's one version. There's also a minor version of it, right? This is the major version. There's also a minor version of the four chord song, which is a lot of pop songs that use the same four chords, but for a minor key instead of a major key. Same idea though, right? They all sound very similar, again, because they use the same chord structure. So, very quick recap. Okay. Oops. So we talked about why is it useful to know about chords? Well, because chords can influence the feel of a song, the moment-to-moment feel of a song, right? And you can have two basic ways of using chords. You can have different chords depending on the scale. And in most normal scales, you have 7 different chords that you can use that all use the notes that already exist in the scale. Hi, Don Camilo. How are you doing? Nice to see you here. How are you? I am talking about music theory. So if you're interested in that, good to hear. If you're interested in that, you are welcome to stay and maybe learn a bit. Okay. Talking about the feeling of songs, right? How songs can feel different depending on how they use or don't use chords. So yeah, where was I? Right, quick recap. You can have a song in a specific key, and in that key you can have chords that are made up of notes that are found in the key. So again, if I go over here, oops, I did not want to press that. Go. Right, C major key. So you have this one, the C major chord, E minor chord, E minor, and so on. Oops. It's not too easy because I'm using my keyboard to play this. Yeah, that's me. This is a website where I can use my computer keyboard to play this online keyboard. Basically, the letters are mapped to the keys. It's a bit difficult because at some point I have to switch rows and such. but it's the best I could find for now. So you could have things like right, things like that, where you just shift around in various chords. That's the 4-chord song. Right? And if you think of any pop song right now, you can probably find one that maps to this basic structure. And so on. The Beatles, for instance. Let me get Let It Be from the Beatles. Uses this. Let me just very quickly check if that's the case. So things like, right? When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Basically like that, right? So it just maps to this. And a lot of pop songs do that. So that was the one thing. You can have chords that exist within a scale, and you can have chords that you enhance in a certain way, which was this down here, right? So you can add more notes to a chord to make it sound more interesting and to evoke a slightly different feel for the chord. So if we have a basic C major chord, and then we just add the 7th note on top, a different sound, right? Or to make it sound jazzy, we can add the flat 7. Right? It's a sound you hear very often in jazz. You could even have, say, a minor C minor chord and then add a 7 to it. You could add a major 7 to it. Starts sounding very ominous, right? You could add other notes to it, like the 9, the 11. Where is that? Right? So you can enhance chords like that by adding more notes and to change the feel of an individual chord like that. So that's the 2 ways, or the 2 basic ways. There are more, of course. This is music we're talking about, and music is artistic expression, and artistic expression is basically infinite, right? But these are the 2 basic ways of how chords can be used to make a song more interesting, make a song deeper, make a song evoke very specific feelings, right? Do you want a lofty feeling? Do you want an ominous feeling? Do you want a jazzy feeling? Do you want a smooth feeling? Do you want, I don't know, a lot of different things? Or do you just want to sound like 3 billion other pop songs and just use the same 4 chords? You can do all of that, right? And that's the beauty of it. So again, this is the 2 basic ways how chords are used to evoke certain feelings in music. So that was a very quick rundown of what I just did. There is way more to chords, of course. Chords can be used to change a key of a song. Chords can be used to transition from one part of the song to another. Chords can be used to break the flow of a song or to resume the flow of a song, right? And there are many, many other ways that chords can be used to make music more interesting. And these techniques have been used for a very long time, for several centuries. Baroque music was very fond of certain types of chords, even the major seven, right? The major seven chord. This one can be found in a lot of Baroque music. So this technique has been used a lot, and sometimes you might not have the full chord in the melody or in the harmony or so, but it's a combination of harmony and melody that creates the full chord. So if I have this in the bass, for instance, just that, and then I play a melody on top. Let me see if I can actually get this with the correct letters. And I emphasize this B. That creates a 7 chord, a major 7 chord. Right? And that can also work. So chords are very, very flexible. And again, the exact arrangement of notes within the chord doesn't change the fundamental identity. Right? That is something very important to remember. You can have inversions and such. You can have right? These are 3 different inversions of a C major chord, and they all sound just a little bit different, right? But fundamentally, they are all the same chord. And that's exactly what you can do in music as well. You can just play around with this, combine various things, leave out a note or two, and still have that chord ring through by having the important notes, right? If I have, what is it? This is just 2 notes, but this is still a major 7 chord, a C major 7. Sure, I'm leaving out these 2, but I only need these 2 notes to create the same feel of the chord. So again, chords are flexible, right? And that's what makes them so powerful. And you basically, except for maybe some types of folk music that are meant to be sung in unison, music does not necessarily, like all music basically has some form of chords in it. And so you will always find them when you listen to music, when you think about music, talk about music. And knowing a bit about them can help you see, oh, okay, I like this type of sound. And maybe this type of sound comes from this specific chord. Or this specific chord combination, right? That's also possible. And you can use that to say, all right, what other songs sound like this? Right? It might not even be the same genre, because chords transcend genre. Sure, there are some genres that use some types of chords more than others. Like I said, the 7 chord is very often used in jazz. But and 9 chords as well. 9 chords are used very often in jazz. But that doesn't mean that jazz is the only type of music that has those types of chords and that type of feel. Right? So you can also use that to enhance your music consumption, right? And say, I like music that sounds like this. Okay, they use these kind of structures. They use these kind of chords or these kind of patterns. And maybe there's other music that does something similar. Right? For instance, a lot of metal music is extremely complex in terms of the chord structures they use. And it's fascinating if you actually, like, once you know about chord structures and you listen to some metal music, you will discover just how deep, like musically deep, a lot of metal music is, because they use very complex chord structures and chords that are very fascinating to listen to, which is something you might not connect or might not associate with metal music, right? But that's the case. So it might give you a deeper appreciation of some genres of music that you may not have thought have a lot going on, right? So this is also why learning a bit about music theory is, at least to me, so fascinating, because music is part of human existence, part of human experience, and it's basically everywhere. And being able to appreciate it on a deeper level, I think, allows us to see some music for what it is and to find other music that we might also like. And that's why I suggest that people at least like know a little bit about music theory. You don't have to know a lot. You don't have to know so much that you write your own music or so, but just understanding what's going on. And you don't need to be able to name all the notes or name all the chords or so. That's not necessary. But understanding, there are chord patterns, there are structures that are used, there are ways to enhance chords by adding more notes to them, is already enough to make you see or hear, oh, okay, this specific music has a lot more going on for it than you may have first thought. So yeah, that's a basic intro on chords in music. I mean, just like any topic in any field, you can go much, much deeper into chords. You can go into all sorts of other chords. You can go into slash chords. You can go into modulation. You can go into all sorts of different things. But that would be complete. Like that's way more advanced stuff. I'm just interested. Seriously, I'm really just interested in these things, and that's why I spend a lot of time on YouTube and other sites just learning about them. Maybe it kind of helped that I had pretty big depressive episodes, and educational YouTube videos kept me going. But yeah, that's I don't know, I'm just interested in this. So yeah. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to present today. So chords, a combination of notes that are played together. Right, there is a specific arrangement of notes. And they influence the feel of a song. That's basically it, right? And like there's more to dive into. Like you can look into what are major chords, what are minor chords, diminished, augmented, and so on. There's various ways to name chords, to combine them and such, and to use them, but that's like step-by-step more advanced things, which might be interesting in a later theme on music theory where I go into more advanced topics if that happens. But for now, for the basics, this is I think sufficient enough to understand what's going on and to realize how complex and flexible chords are and what you can do with them. So yeah, I really do suggest, if you are interested in this, you check out Axis of Awesome, the 4-chord song that they have. And like if you haven't noticed this before with pop music, your mind might not be blown, but you will suddenly realize, whoa, okay, a lot of pop music is very formulaic, written with this exact structure, and it really is fascinating how they just pick so many different songs from so many different artists and just manage to fit them into this 4-chord structure. So yeah, that's if you want homework, that's your homework. Check out 4-chord song by Axis of Awesome. It's a fun listen, definitely a fun listen. And yeah, I think that was it from me. And so my teacher instinct is now going to take over. Are there any questions or comments or feedback or anything you would like to say? All right. If there's nothing more, then I thank everyone for coming by today. I hope you learned at least a little bit of something, or I was able to whet your appetite for a bit of music theory. Yeah. And as is tradition on Twitch, I am going to find someone to raid. Because this is still a stream and this is still something to do. So let me see if anyone is actually on. Let me see if the stream is ending or not for here. Uh, 2.5 hours, but it seems like it's still gonna go a little bit. Okay, so we are going to raid someone. We are going to raid Kadzane. Kadzane, who is a disabled VTuber who has a cerebral palsy, and despite that still manages to stream a lot and do awesome content. So we are going to go say hi to Kadzane. So yeah, thank you again to everyone who came by, and I hope you learned a bit of something. I'm gonna try and stream again this week at some point. If not, maybe you'll join me for next Talk Tuesday, where I think I'll be having the last session on music theory, which is going to involve rhythms and beats and all that stuff that does not involve tones. Yeah, thank you for being here. Thanks. So let me get the name right. Raid Kadzane VT channel. All right. So yeah, thank you for coming, and I hope I'll see you again. Take care and bye-bye.